Hey everyone, Richard Metal Fan here, bringing you guys a brand new 2018 album review. Excuse me. And today we're going to be looking into the new album from one of my personal favorite death metal bands. And as you can see by the title, today we're going to be looking into the new album, Overtures of Blasphemy by the almighty Deicide. Now, Deicide definitely doesn't need an introduction. They're a death metal band hailing all the way from Tampa, Florida. They've been around since 1987, and they're part of those Florida death metal bands with like them, Obituary, Cannibal Corpse, bands of that nature. And Deicide is kind of a little bit different compared to, like I said, Cannibal Corpse or any bands from that era. Like lyrically, like with all the other death metal topics are about like zombies, like dismemberment, like any graphic and violent type of things. Um, but what Deicide, what Deicide does make stands about, like lyrically they sing about like anti-Christian, anti-religious stuff and blasphemy stuff, which kind of makes them stand out from like any other of the death metal acts out there. And here we are with their, I believe, forget what it is, 12th or 13th album. I mean, this is the follow-up to their previous album, which came out in 2013, which was In the Minds of Evil, which I thought was a pretty good album. Of course, I saw Deicide for the first time last year at the Earl Bar in Atlanta, and it was awesome. But anyway, and I had a chance to listen to this album, and what can I say? I actually really enjoyed it. I actually like it a lot more than the previous album. Anything Deicide does is pretty good. The production is very crunchy sounding. It's just very beefy. Like the mixes is where it needs to be. And let's talk about like Glenn Benton's vocals. Like his vocals, like sort of like the different layers, like the lows that he does and the highs that he does, just mixed well. And just the bass, his bass playing, you could definitely hear it well in the mix. It cuts through the guitars as well. And guitar-wise, Kevin Corian and Mark English. This is actually the first album with Mark English, who replaced their old guitar player at Jack Owens, who's been with them since 2004. Like the guitar playing that their guitar playing is just spot on. It's just the soloing, the wing, and just all the crazy shit that they do is just fucking ridiculous. Drumming-wise, what can I say about Steve Ashman? One of the best drummers I've heard. It's just wow. And yeah, without further ado, let's dive into this album track by track. Now the album opens up with One with Satan, which is surprisingly a slow pace to begin with, dominated by a bruising, churning riff supported by some incredibly accentuations and more over the top extreme metal drumming. I mean, the pace is increased in a heartbeat, however, and the ensuing 3 or so minutes is a blur with frenetic staccato riffing, swirling and wailing lead guitar breaks, guttural vocals, and a rhythm section that pummels with venomous intent. And unless if I'm mistaken on this song, there's a little bit of a hint of melody too, within like the final lead guitar in the solo as well. Then we go into the next song, Crawl from the Shadows, which takes over, and I'm almost kind of giddy with this pleasure. Sure, if melody was sort of like hinted at in the opening track, it bashes the listener over the head here. But and there's like I'm sorry, I'm just kind of like speech. It's like this album is damn good, and there's sort of like a demonstrable amount of accessibility in the chorus of sorts border. There's sort of like catchy and sort of like the least in the extreme death metal text at any rate. And it's still Deicide, but the edges are lightly softer. And then we go into Sealed the Tomb Below, which effortlessly replicates the feeling of being flattened by a steamroller. That's like the only thing I could describe about it. Compliments of Christ, most certainly entertaining, sort of like the groove expressively breaks and are sort of like an almost kind of like bouncy tempo, or sort of juxtaposed with some generally hateful lyrics. I mean, at least if you're religious, of course. All That Is Evil, which just assaults such as Faster as Lightning. Excommunicated, which has one of the coolest intros of the album with a very killer solo. Anointed and Blood, which just has some chunky, chugging riffs that are just pleasing to my ears. Crucified Soul of Salvation further consolidates sort of like the Heretic aura. The first is a juggernaut of no frills death metal that leaves like no room to breathe, while the second sees like Glenn sort of like go on to full on rampage of vituperation. Then we go into Defying the Sacred, which the opening passage and sort of like the midsection, even though it sort of like generally descends into something more unrelenting for like the most part. Consumed by Hatred, which is more than enough to prove that Benton and his devilish friends are back with full force to desecrate tombs and assassinate gods and boys and kick major ass with delicious riffs. And then we go into the final two songs on here, being Flesh, Power, and Dominion and Destined to Blasphemy, which illustrates Clockwork Instrumental and visceral angriness, easily matching those of Deicide's heydays. The latter one, for the matter, is one of their best songs in a long time, for being extremely ruthless and just evil sounding. Now, overall, Overtures of Blasphemy by Deicide is a really good album. Like, first new material from them in nearly 5 years. I actually really enjoyed this album a lot, and still one of the best death metal bands out there. So if I were to give this album a score, I'd probably give the new Deicide probably a 9 out of 10. So yeah, that's my review of the new Deicide. Guys, let me know in the comments what you guys think about it, and I'll see you all in the next video, and keep it metal.